This is Family Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Gemma Lopez, your career coach and recruiting expert. Welcome to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great to be able to talk to people, all types of people on the program, and a lot of people have to go through career changes in their life, and having a career coach, recruiting expert is important.
Yeah.
Because I know even if you're an artist, is like sometimes you need your next gig, or you need your
Right.
next work for higher assignment or whatever you're doing, and being able to present yourself the way the market is today. There's a
Mhm.
lot of questions I'm going to have about like the way a lot of these systems are for recruiting now. um Seems like it's a lot harder. There's a lot more people using
Yeah.
these platforms, and it's like, how do you distinguish yourself? How do you get out there when everybody's like applying for the same job?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll post a position and literally a day goes by and there's 800 applicants and
Yeah, this
it's
seems like
just
it's
nuts.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to what it was. And I
Mhm.
have a little bit of a story on that myself, but one of the things I always ask every guest before we
Mm.
get into your story is what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, honestly, what motivates me is really the opportunity to make a meaningful impact in people's lives. And I think that having a career is just that's like what we're taught, right? We're always taught we have to go to work every day, kind of get
Mhm.
that paycheck until you retire. So I think I'm really inspired by seeing someone go from like stuck to really kind of feeling undervalued or they're feeling just uncertain about what to do next, and I love seeing them kind of transform into someone that's self-confident and that's like very clear on where they're going and aligned, and they're really kind of inspired and have a purposeful career. And that's what really motivates me is seeing the change that I have in people's lives. And your work, it really bleeds into every single thing that you do. Like, it bleeds into your relationships, it bleeds into your hobbies, how you're feeling, your health. So honestly, for me, I love what I do. I know how transformative it is to wake up every day being really excited about work, and not just for the paycheck or the title, but because like you really enjoy it, you feel like you're giving back or it's meaningful. And I've been on my own journey of self-discovery, and I've seen how life-changing it's been for myself and for other people. So that's kind of why I do what I do.
I think it's real important to have folks like yourself, because like the market is so hard today. I've been a consultant. I'm a software
Mhm.
guy. I've been a consultant for many years. Used to be working with like big insurance companies as an employee, but I went independent. But then during the pandemic, there was a bad result because of the pandemic. If you're working like in life insurance,
Mm,
there was like a lot of companies that started to like scale back, and they had losses.
yeah.
There was a lot of end result of pandemic, and they did life insurance and companies, casualty companies had heavy losses, so
Hmm.
they had to stop a lot of the projects they were working on. So then there's a lot of competition for those roles.
Yes.
And so you try to get a role that used to be maybe 10, 20 people, and there's like 300 people
Yeah.
trying to get it. So I had to start. Well, I changed in my job search. Instead of just using the LinkedIn's and the career builders and all that, I used my Rolodex
Yeah.
of all the people I knew, and went back to like a startup I had worked with, and talked to the founders on a phone call, and it's like, "Hey, do you have anything?" And that worked better. And now I'm actually in a full-time job, and I got a bonus and everything because I
Oh,
actually
good.
engaged with not the algorithm, but actual
Right.
old-fashioned talking to somebody I knew.
It's so fun, and it's like that. I honestly, for anyone listening, like, I've been saying that for this entire month. I'm like, "Stop applying for jobs," because it's the holiday season. There's so many, like, you don't know what's posted. There's a lot of scam out there. The best thing to do is, like you said, go back to your Rolodex and really have conversations with people, and talk to people again. And I don't know if people are just really afraid of doing that, or if they just, since the digital age, especially in the last few
Yeah,
years,
they're
being
thinking
like by ourselves.
that's not proper. They
Yeah,
don't know if they've got the etiquette, or they don't know if they can
right,
actually have the permission to actually get
right.
on the phone and do what we used to do. back in the
Yes.
90s and the 80s. I'm a child of the 70s before all this, and, that was kind of what you did.
Mhm.
You had to actually walk into a company,
Right, and say,
go
"Hey,
into
are
a
you
thing, ask for an
hiring?"
application, and you
Yes.
actually fill it out and talk to somebody and, try to go to these, career things in
Yeah.
Boston. I live in the Northeast. They would go there and they'd, like, shake hands with people and show up in Northeastern when they had these career fairs, and
Yes.
you had to do that. You had to
Yep.
show up.
You had
You
to
had to
show up.
call you had to call people. My dad was an insurance guy. He's like, he was cold calling people all the time. He's like, "You gotta get something, you gotta cold call people, you gotta do it."
Yeah,
That's
that's how I started my career. You had to cold call.
that's kinda like what it is now.
Yeah.
Like, even though there are all
Mhm.
these algorithms and everybody's, like, using LinkedIn like Instagram
Right.
and doing these stories, it's like, really? It's like, maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, but I'm like, I went old school and it worked.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's a really interesting time, and I think people are, a lot of my clients, people are telling like they're tired of it. They want that human connection, and that is the best way to stand out, is to be yourself. Like, people want to know that there is someone behind the screen, right? There's like
Mhm.
more to the story behind a piece of paper. And even with all the technology and AI and everything like that coming out, it's like people still want the human interaction.
And sometimes it's like you're gonna have a better shot with somebody or
Yes.
somebody that's in a Rolodex that can give you a recommendation to somebody that may have something because what I've noticed in the world today, there's a lot of this like companies grabbing other people from other companies and just moving
Mhm.
people from one place to the
Yep.
next, right? And everybody's got the acronym, they got all the certifications. Nobody's
Mhm.
willing to actually train anybody,
Yes. Oh,
right?
100%.
So
That
so
has
it's like
been 10
so it's
years
like
now. Right.
So how are you supposed to, like, actually take anybody and, like, in the beginning of my career, I
Mhm.
actually got to a software company, wasn't a
Mhm.
programmer, just had a bachelor's degree,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't even comp sci, but I came out of school, Bowdoin College, which is a pretty highly rated school, and
Yeah.
what I basically pitched was, "I can write research papers.
Right.
I can do research. I know how to learn." Right?
Yeah.
What my skill set is I know how to learn. I know how to learn new things. I know how to do research. And a new field
Mhm.
showed up that was called business analysis, which
Yes.
was in between a programmer and the A suite, C
Mhm.
suite people. And we needed
Mhm.
to be able to communicate because the programmers weren't good at communicating and they
Right.
weren't good at writing, papers. They're good at doing code. And so I was able to get my foot in the door and say, hey, I could do that. And
Mhm.
I kind of invented the job, right? I kinda
Yeah.
described what I thought it should be, and it was like the entry back in, like, 92, 93.
Mhm.
I'm doing that kind of job, and it's, like, kind of a new thing, and, that's what people are you have to kinda be able to make that, elevator pitch
Right.
and show that, like, even though I don't have the acronym, and I don't have the certification, you can sell yourself if you can present in a good enough way through communication skills, and I guess it's like,
Right.
well, how do you build that confidence to give your permission structure to even have that
Mhm.
conversation?
It's interesting because I think like you had said, that's such a big risk, right? And I think if you were used to it, if you, grew up before the pandemic, before the digital age, even when I was looking for a job, it was like using the phone book, when I first started looking for a job like forever ago. But right now, what's really interesting is that people are so much in their head. They're so down on themselves, and it's so heartbreaking to see this. And that's where a lot of people come to me and they're just like they're tired of it, but they've lost all
Mhm.
self-confidence where they don't want to put themselves out there anymore.
Yeah, it's
And
scary. It's
it's
scary.
scary, it's scary, but, like, no risk, no reward, right? Like, I'm always like, "You gotta do it scared, you have to keep going," because, even it's funny how I got into recruiting, I actually, had applied and I had, like, a personality test, and I had gotten my degree, I had a couple of years of, like, admin experience and stuff, and I was like, "I wanna get a real, quote, unquote, job," like, I wanted to get into a career, and I actually got declined. They were like, "Your personality doesn't fit what we usually hire for." And I think at that point in time, and this is like 15 years ago, I was pissed. I was like, what do you mean? Like I went to school, I have the credentials, like I meet all the job requirements. But me pushing back, like putting myself out there and just asking for feedback, even if it was uncomfortable, I actually got the job. They were like, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you feel like, you know, you really want this job, like we'll give you a shot and we'll interview you." So it's kind of the same thing. Like if you don't put yourself out there or
Yeah,
advocate a little bit for yourself, it's not going to
you have
work
to
out every
push it.
time,
Yeah.
but it's never going to work if you never say anything.
Yeah, a lot of times you gotta get past
Mhm.
the algorithm. Problem
Yeah.
today is you can't get to the human being.
Right.
Like, it's going through and scanning, it's like, is it in the right format? Oh,
Right.
you got something, the syntax is wrong. So now
Yeah.
you're not even gonna get in front of somebody. Then if you get in front of somebody, they might still be going down a checklist. Oh, they don't have SQL. Oh, they don't have
Right.
chat GPT experience with prompt engineering. They don't have this, they don't have that, they don't have, so but there's like what do you have?
Mhm.
If you get a recruiter that's actually like, let me see if this person has like resilience. Like, let me see if this person has done stuff. Like, what if they worked in banking?
Right.
What if they worked in healthcare? What if they worked in, at an internet startup?
Yeah.
What if they worked overseas? Like, those things show somebody's got versatility.
Right.
They show things they probably could learn, right? Like
Right.
90% of the jobs out there, you could learn whatever is there. You could figure it
Yeah.
out.
You
So,
Everybody can figure it out. And I think
yeah,
it's like what you were saying, it's not that it is challenging. You have to keep trying, but what I always say is make your resume and your LinkedIn profile showcase what you want to be doing. Because if you're in banking, for example, and all of your experience is banking and you're not showcasing those relevant skill set into what you want to do, then someone's going to look at your profile or your resume and say, "Oh, well, this person's in banking. They don't really have what I'm looking for." So that's
mhm,
the importance of like tailoring your skills, because if you were going from banking to a technical role, let's say you're going to be a software engineer and you want to kind of make a pivot to technology, you don't want to highlight so much of the customer service aspect or handling money or whatever you're doing that is more banking focused, but you want
mhm.
to highlight, I'm sure you worked on systems, I'm sure that there were reports that you've done, like
Yeah.
there's always different things that you could
Parallels. Yeah, it's
parallels that
like
you
a
can tie it
like
to.
a database is a
Yeah,
database, whether it's banking
exactly.
or insurance, right? If you
Right.
work with the data, you could argue like the data
Yeah.
structure for an account is not that different from a bank, from an insurance company, or for a
Right.
healthcare company. Everybody's got an account, everybody's got accounting, everybody's got
Hmm.
customer service connections. It's like, so if you've worked with CRMs, like,
Yeah.
you understand how CRMs work, whether the widget or a service or a product. The database structure on how to handle a problem is not that different from for anything. It's like it's still
Right.
logging that problem. So if you can show the commonalities of what you could do and how
Hmm.
you could actually bring some insights,
Right.
like where you
Yeah.
solved a problem, like you talk about like the business case, right?
Hmm.
That could be like a universal business case of
Yeah.
solving a problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because like IT, the systems are all this, right? You work in IT at one company, it's the same. You still have to order the computers, you still have to connect the
Yeah,
networks.
certain
Like
things are all the same. Yeah.
it's all the same and the same thing. And there's so many departments. And that's what it's really interesting is that I really challenge people to they dream bigger. What do you want to do? Because a lot of the times, you might think that the job that you're in is the problem. Right? But it may not be the actual physical job that you're doing. It might just be the environment. Maybe it's the company that doesn't jive with you. Maybe you want
Mhm.
something very routine, very structured, but you work at a startup. It's like that
Yeah.
that doesn't
Doesn't
match
jive.
up.
Yeah, yeah, you
Right.
wanna
So
be
I think
aligned
like yeah,
with your
you got to
goals.
look at it holistically of like do I want high stress or does that bore me? And I think like just people don't realize that they also have a choice in that. When you really determine what you want and what works best for you, then you can kind of like quiet all the other noise and really be focused and strategic on what you're looking for.
Yeah, is your work style fit
Right.
the company ethos? Like,
Yes. Hmm.
it is like, are you looking for the startup where things are like you're gonna invent new things? Or
Right.
you're looking for something that's a repeatable process that you can get into and understand and master, right?
Right.
and it's not going to be a lot of variation once you master it. It's like that's what it is.
Yes.
Or do
Hmm.
you want the opportunity to kind of do the next level stuff? Like you want to be where you're going into new ground.
Yeah.
And if you got to realize what type of person are you? Are you successful at that? Can you point out where you've actually have successful engagements and done things where you can get
Yes.
recommendations to show that you're adaptable, to
Hmm.
show that you're detail oriented. And you find the things that are really the buzzwords for that organization,
Right.
yeah, and then figure out how to, say that, hey, I am aligned with what your company's trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not hard because we have the internet, right? So
Yeah, so you can
it's
do it.
like if you want to find out what their ethos is, what their mission is, like what they're really looking for, it's like look at the job description, like just do a little bit of research beforehand. And there's just tips and tricks, you can look at, do they have funding? Are they growing? How many people have they hired in the last 6 months? How long do people stay there? Like we have so much information now at our fingertips that like I encourage people to really just get specific, like what do you want? And kind of start there because that'll be your north star with where you're looking, and that'll help kind of with your networking connections and your Rolodex to be like, who do I know that works at this type of place, or who can I ask, or who can make an introduction to me?
Yeah, it just seems like today, like if you're stuck in that kind of LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Indeed world, and you look every time you look at the jobs, it's like there are too many applicants.
Right.
Like, how am I gonna break through? There's 500 applicants, 2,000 applicants. It's like you've got to figure out another method. So we've kind of talked about
Yeah.
like my point of view, but what's your point of view on how to break through if you're using those systems?
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And I think and LinkedIn has also changed their in-mails. So before, you used to be able to send a message through LinkedIn, which you still can do that, but they changed their inbox where it's kind of like Gmails and Outlooks where there's like a focused and an other. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm reaching out, but I'm not getting any responses. And I'm like, well, it's because they're not seeing them. So sometimes we might think that we're being ghosted, or it's like we're just relying, like you mentioned, on one platform. So I always encourage people to before they even apply for a job, or even if they're determining if they want that position, to start with, do they know anyone at that company? So to go back to that Rolodex, do I know anyone there? If I don't know anyone there, do I have any commonalities? Did anyone go to the same alma mater as me? Did anyone overlap companies or worked at the same company after me? And whatever common ground you can kind of find to get an introduction to really find out what that company is like and try to get a referral.
Mm.
And if you don't have anything, or you're like, I don't want to do that, that's too much, then I think simply an email. Everyone has to check their email and they're held accountable for their email. So if you email, a CEO, which I've had in my recruiting experience, so many people, and it's usually interns, honestly, and I think it's because they're not scared, they don't know any better,
Yeah,
and
they
they're
do
like, emailing the CEO like, "Hey, I'm really interested in this company." But what always happens is their email gets forwarded and it gets trickled down. And it's like, "Hey, the CEO wants you to call this guy." So like that person gets a call. So I think just anything that you can think of, whether it's, I mean, I've worked at places and I've gotten handwritten letters. I don't think you need to do that right now unless you would like to.
it.
But even just an email, I think, is an extra step that a lot of people aren't doing.
Yeah, because they probably think it's getting weeded out,
Yeah.
and they're not gonna get breakthrough, but they might break through a lot better. It's like the phone call
Hmm.
or, to actually Rolodex or you bump into somebody,
Right.
you find a way to get to, symposiums or,
Yes.
career fairs or technology expositions, and then, not just have an elevator pitch that people are gonna ignore, but, like,
Right.
be able to tell your story that's gonna be kinda like what I've kinda learned is, like, listening skills. Don't
Mhm.
just have the same story.
Right.
Like, actually maybe ask some questions of the person you're talking to before you go and do the pitch, and
Mhm.
pick up, like, what they are interested in, and
Yeah.
then adjust your pitch in real time to what you heard from their response.
Yes, exactly. It's like and honestly, it's like, just have a real conversation.
Yeah, that's like a real thing, but it's like, don't just have the
Yeah,
canned conversation that you say to
right.
everybody there. and everybody's saying, "This
Yeah.
guy keeps on saying the same thing to everybody in the room, and nobody's, like, biting."
Right, right, and I think it's interesting because I've held, like, networking workshops, and even people that congregate at the same area, whether it's, like, church or if you're a regular restaurant, it's like, imagine the people that you see on a day-to-day basis that you just kinda, like, wave at, neighbors. But it's like, if you talk to people, it will get less scary. It's like a muscle you have to practice, and I think networking is such a fancy it's a word that's scary, but really your network is just peers that that maybe you have something professional like in common with them.
Mhm.
So a lot of people forget like who did you work with? Even 10 years ago, I still will catch up with coworkers that I worked with 10, 15
Yeah,
years
it's good
ago.
to keep that Rolodex
Yeah,
active, It's like, in my
right.
instance, it's like a company I worked with 3 years ago. It was a startup and it didn't work out. But I'd
Mhm.
always stayed in touch with the guys who founded it. And I just happened to say, "Do you guys have anything in your pipeline? Because I
Right.
enjoyed working with you guys." And then boom, they did. And it was just keeping up with people in your network, and it wasn't like I was sending that to everybody. I kind of just remembered, like, "Hey,
Right.
I worked with these guys." And I saw that one of the guys with one of the owners was posting something about a symposium they had been at, and I read it, and I was like, "Whoa, these guys are still at, they look like they're back in the game. They're building it back up." And I said, "Well, let me
Yeah.
ask them what's going on." That had more success than anything I was doing
Yeah.
on any of the boards.
Oh,
Mm,
100%.
you
Because
know?
and you're working with the real decision makers, right? Like, you're talking to someone that already knows you, can already vouch for you. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you've worked for us before. Like, come back. That's great."
Yeah,
And everybody has somebody that they can go to. And then I always tell people, don't forget about the networks of your friends, your partners. Like, if you don't tell people that you're looking, no one's
yeah,
gonna
they
know
won't
you're
know.
looking.
Yeah, because yeah, because like, your friends could have know somebody
Right,
at a firm's like, "I'm looking for somebody." Somebody sometimes that always pops up is like, "Oh, we really need some ETL guys," or
right.
we need some BSAs, and we need some, actuaries, or we're looking for underwriters." Like, wherever, you're in, it's like people are looking for certain roles.
Yes.
And if they're looking for people that they know, because they happen to believe, like, well, if this guy refers it, he's a decent guy. I worked with him before. I'm going to trust his referral rather than something I just saw coming through the LinkedIn algorithm. They'll probably go with who you recommend before they'll tell you even
Yeah.
talk to them.
Oh, absolutely. Even it's interesting, like, and yeah, that is so accurate. And it's like, in just to share some insider like recruiting, I've recruited for lots of companies. The first question is always, "Hey, we're hiring. Does anyone know anyone?" And they'll ask the people on the team. And then the second go to is, "Okay, does anyone in the company know anyone?" So it's
Yeah,
always that referral is always, people want
first
to
choice, first
first
line.
choice. It's
They
like
can't
that's a
find anybody, then
recommendation.
they might go looking somewhere else, but it's always looking for employee referrals.
Right, right. But if you think about it, like, I don't buy anything without really looking at, like, reviews.
Yeah,
Or if
you got to
someone
check it
refers
out.
something to me, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, let me try that," right, over something else, and it's the same thing with people.
Yeah, you check that used car is like,
Yeah,
there's a Subaru got consumer report rating like super high. It's like, whoa, not that I'm pushing that. It's like, but go check the
right.
ratings. It's like the resale value is high.
Mhm.
This is good. This is good. It's like you gotta start looking at the core things. It's like, do you want to spend a lot of money in the shop?
Right, exactly,
Do you want
exactly.
something that's like not going to cause a problem? So you start looking for, like, what's the review? You go
Mhm.
restaurants, like, you go to a
Yep,
new neighborhood. It's like, I could just take a hit or miss, or I could actually look. People are saying this is awesome. It's 5 star, and people are saying it's 1 star. It's like, well, why would I
right.
even try it?
Exactly, and you'll look at the pictures, you look at the
Yeah,
pricing, and it's kind of funny because it's the same thing that recruiters do. They're looking at your resume. They're looking at your LinkedIn profile. Everyone that you're like, "Oh, we're interviewing someone." Everyone's looking up your LinkedIn profile just to do the research, right, before they meet you. And it's just I think that's something that we forget. We don't think that like they're shopping you as much as you're shopping them. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Um so like have fun with it and like go out for what you want and don't just be reactive because a lot of people just take what they can get or they see what's posted online. But I bet you that founder, they probably hadn't even like thought about posting that position when you reached
yeah,
out to them and they were like, "Oh, you know what, actually we were thinking about opening that position in the next couple of months, but like, hey, you landed in our lap. Like, let's go.
Yeah, because that's the opportunity. You can make your own
Yes. Mhm.
opportunities, and a lot of times, out there in the world, it's like people are kind of scared of really kind of giving themselves the permission to dream.
Yeah.
Like, if you if you say like I want a better life, right? I'm tired. Like if you're in a job and it's like, well, it feels like a dead end, right? It doesn't feel like they're
Mhm.
listening. Like you're kind of getting clues. Like if you don't feel that you're being heard, if you don't feel like there's opportunity for advancement, it's like it's just kind of taking care of the bare minimum.
Yeah.
If you want to do better than that, then you have to kind of give yourself permissions like I deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And then once you get that mindset, right, it's all mindset. Like in coaching, it's like if you feel like, oh, I can just live with it like a toxic relationship, it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's like it's safer to be here because I don't know what's out there.
Mhm. It's easy to
Rather than
justify it,
yeah,
right?
you justify it rather than saying like, well, maybe I should try to do better.
Right. And a lot of people they become skeptical too. And I've fallen into that trap where you're in a really bad place. You don't want to believe it's you. Right? You're like, "Oh, well, it sucks and I shouldn't even try because at least I know what I'm into right now." But I think that for people that are in that situation, what I had to do was look outside of just my inner circle and look for inspiration outside of that. Find people that love what they do. Even reading about like the famous like inventors and just the tech hubs and all the celebrities that you can read about, like how they pursued their dreams. It's like that will get some wheels going of like, okay,
Yeah,
I can do this.
yeah, it's not always like 0 to 100 where it's
Right.
success. It's like I'm an artist, right? So if I
Hmm.
write a song, it's like sometimes it's like there's probably like 50 demos on the floor before
Right.
I actually
Yeah.
get to the one that worked. But do I actually count all those 49 as failures or rungs on the ladder to the one that worked?
Yeah.
It's kind of a mindset.
It's a
Do you look at
mindset.
that as like wasted time or it was all good time effort that got me to where I am?
Yeah,
And
because it
so it's like,
compounds, that
yeah,
compounding effect of like the little bit that you do. And 50 demos, like, you didn't stop. It's not like you were like, "Let me record the whole album at once." Like, maybe it's just you start with a demo, you start with one song, and then you keep going. I think people put so much pressure on themselves to be perfect, or they'll try things that are uncomfortable for a little bit of time because nobody wants to be uncomfortable. No one wants to do anything scary. But if you don't go outside of your comfort zone, you're not gonna get the benefits and the rewards of getting what you want outside of that.
yeah, sometimes what you do is like doesn't work for the time, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times I look at a lot of the stuff I've worked on, it doesn't work for what I'm trying to do at the moment. But then if I go back, I've gone back and found stuff that's like it works now. So you don't, it's not wasted effort because everything you did, you can kind of go back as a resource and
Mhm.
call on. And it's like, oh, now this works. Like a skill set you did 5 years ago,
Yeah,
and you could have been doing, SQL.
right, you're
And
always
you're
learning.
and then somebody suddenly needs SQL now, and it's like, well, I can get a recommendation saying
Oh.
from this person saying I did it. I'm not doing it now, but I did do it. So, like, maybe you didn't use it for the last 3 years,
Mhm.
but now you could use it, right? So
Yeah,
it's like sometimes things just fall in place where it's like the right time, and somebody needs that.
mhm.
So then suddenly you're in the right position, but you got to put it out there. And some people was like, oh well, you got to be current. Like that's not always the case. Like you got to put out if you get the recommendations, people saying you're really good,
Yeah.
you can still get through it. Like you can push. Like when you said that job said you weren't the right fit, and then you
Mhm.
push a little bit, you still get
Yeah.
it.
Right, right. I mean, and I think it's like you said, it's you become an expert at what you're doing. And I think it's like we especially with AI and all of the ways that things are changing now, where it's going to be just easier and faster. And that's one of the reasons why there's so many people applying for jobs because you can just click a button and it applies. It's like there's going to be value in people that have expertise and that can do the reps. and just can, like, they're experts. They have been doing it for 5 years without recognition. And you get that grit, you get that resilience and that persistence where when you do face challenges, you'll be able to overcome them.
Mhm.
As opposed to if everything came easy, you need that contrast. So,
Yeah. If
yeah, I
you're
don't
so yeah, if you're willing to show that you'll go into, like,
yeah.
challenging environments and then you were able
Mhm.
to show results, like,
Yeah.
you went into something that was hard and you like, maybe you didn't, like, have everything that was required and you ramped up and you can show that you can learn.
Yeah,
If you
you
can
can
show
learn.
that you have the ability to be adaptable,
Mhm.
like, you went somewhere, you had to be on assignment, you had to travel, you had to be in a new environment,
Right.
you had to learn new things, right? You immediately
Mhm.
pick up on it. If you can show that resilience, then somebody when they say, "Well, you don't have this." Well, I showed like in this example, I can show that I can ramp up and I can get it,
Right. It's like I
and I
may
did.
not have this, but I have
I
this
had
instead.
this, and I had
Right.
to do that. So it doesn't mean I couldn't get this, right?
Mhm.
So if you make that argument when you get to physically talk to somebody, you can show that, yeah, like I might not have all the certifications for this particular role, but I did learn all these in this role. So shows I can pass these tests. So if I pass these tests, I can pass this test. You know?
Absolutely. And if you're willing to try things out and it doesn't work and pivot and be able to think strategically, I mean, just someone that keeps trying and shows up and
Yeah.
sees that as a skill rather than as a failure. I think that, just kind of really reframing rejection into more of redirection and being able to have that conversation because those are things that you can't learn like from going to school or a certification. Like you can't learn to have that grit and that resilience and
Oh yeah, that's
determination.
on the job
Yes.
training. Like it's
Mhm.
like if you like in like one example, like insurance industry, there's thing called policy administration systems, right? And they're like systems that put the stuff on the record, right? There's certain
Mm.
systems that were been around since like the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah.
And if you have that skill set and you worked on that system, as a consultant, I would get jobs. I'd be on a 3-year gig because I had
Yeah.
this one system I knew. And then there was a bunch of insurance companies happened to use that system. And so if they saw that you had that, you got to work for 2, 3 years on a project. And that would keep me going for years. It was like I would
Mhm.
go 3 years on this one for one big company, and then go next guy has the same system, then I get to work for them. And it was kind of able to bounce around and still, kind of not be in a full-time job with an employer, but consulting from one project to the next,
Mhm.
and they were long term.
Yeah.
So it was something that fit what I wanted to do at the time. So if you can get into a model where it's like, hey, I can be confident enough that I can have these 2-year gigs and not freak out. There's like what happens on the 3rd year,
Yes.
right? Like if you can get beyond that and get, saying that not cause yourself tons of anxiety because you want to know you want to be in there forever.
Yeah,
Well,
you feel like it's more secure, and I was guilty of that before I made the jump to do that, and then I was like, "Why wasn't I consulting all along? This is the best."
yeah, because then he's like, then you're kind of like a road warrior. You're a gun for
Mhm.
hire, and you can prove from one project to the next and get recommendations, and it makes you more. I think it makes you really valuable because you can know different environments,
Yeah.
but you can see the commonalities.
Mhm, and you can hit the ground running. They don't need to train you. You
Yeah,
already because you've done it so many different places, you know exactly what to look for when you start, and I mean, like, we're in different industries, and it's like you can be a consultant in any industry. It's
yeah,
not just IT or recruiting, it can be
yeah. It's kind of a
accounting,
new thing.
everything. Yeah,
It's a new
so
economy. It's kind of a lot of companies are more willing to hire you as a consultant than an
mhm,
employee. But if you're only looking for the employee, you might have a hard time
yeah,
because a lot of times they're willing to do the year contract or the 2-year contract or 6-month contract, but like you could be working, but then you're like, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't know what's going to happen after 12 months.
yeah. But then
Yeah,
you're like, you wanna shake them because you wanna be like, "Well, what happens if your company decides to" it's not secure. It's this false sense of security that we have from 9 to 5 jobs and getting paid every 2 weeks. And I mean, it's great, to know that you always have a job in your mind. We kind of have that failed optimism, but I think when you kind of break away from that and get that confidence, because that's really where it comes from, back to it, it's confidence, right? Like,
Yeah, that you'll
because
find it, you'll
that you'll
get to it.
find something else. You're like, in 2 years, I'm just going to find a better gig, or I'm going to find a full-time role, or you have options at that point rather than living in scarcity.
Yeah, once you have been doing it, then your Rolodex builds up.
Yeah.
The companies you work for
Hmm.
tend, they give you a recommendation and you get to work for the next one. So then, you end up being able to leverage everything you've done, and it makes you like, valuable because you've got insights
Yes.
that, that my papa, he worked for the same company for 25 years. That was the old model. That's
Yeah.
what everybody wants. That's what, like, certain people still want that. That's
Yeah.
very hard to get.
It's so
But
hard to get. Hmm.
the world the way it is now, you're gonna shift around, and then you might
Right.
even be an entrepreneur or have like a micro,
Hmm.
skill set. Like if you're doing your own, like, your own work. Like you're
Yeah.
generating your own you're 1099, or you're doing gig work, you're doing like specialized service work. You come up with your own, you're
Hmm.
a therapist and you do online like sessions and you have webinars, and like that's what I've talked to tons of people on the show, with people who that's what they do. They have podcasts, they have webinars, they have
Yeah.
services, they do symposiums, they have trips, people come and they get career guidance, or you know whatever guidance it is, but like
Right.
people create their own
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah, and it's so cool because it's like I mean, look at even the kids that are YouTubers that are millionaires,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like
gig work.
it's awesome. It's like gig work, and it's like it's so easy now, even with all those like delivery apps, and it's just there's so much. And another thing I want to say too, it's funny, my mom had told me this growing up because she actually my parents both work in IT, and it was I remember Y2K and all of that, but my mom was like, maybe the job that you are meant to do isn't created yet, because she
Yeah.
talked about how like that wasn't a thing yet, right? And I
Yeah,
think
there's always something that you never know what the next thing is.
right, you never know what it is, so it's like staying curious, staying open, and just keeping your skills updated, and just like continuous learning. And then being able to tie those learnings together, like it's never a waste of time if you're investing in yourself.
Well, I think the fear is that, like, some people felt like, "Well, I got my degree, I got my certification, I figured I was gonna be in this." And now we're in this new age of the AI, robotics, automation age, where even programmers can get replaced, right?
Yeah.
Even some IT work is getting automated. And so the thing is, like, we have to what I learned really early is you have to constantly be a student.
Mhm.
You constantly live within in software design. We went from mainframes to blockchain to now AI machine learning. And so there's whole different levels of skill sets. Now I can still get jobs on my mainframe stuff because they still exist.
Yeah.
There's still stuff out there that uses it. There's stuff that uses servers, they use Oracle, they use
Right.
.NET. There's still stuff that everything I've learned, there's still things out there. But you do need to kind of be up on, and that's I think people get scared. It's like, well, how can I get up on AI? How can I get up on machine learning? How can I get up on robotics? And maybe that's not what they originally went into the world for. But that's kind of
Mm.
the world that's happening, is like you're going to be able to be with your 3D printer and your online service, your own little mini factory. Like you could
Right.
do things on your own. You could build that food truck kind of idea. You could
Yeah.
have your own thing. And some people are like, wow, I can actually do my own thing. He's like, there's a lot of freedom actually. And it's actually really what we want to do, I think, as human beings, is to be
Mhm.
more self-reliant and have our own thing.
Yeah, have our own thing. And it's funny because, when you were saying that, I was thinking when I had graduated college and I started in recruiting, I realized that, people are like, "Oh, the degree is just a piece of paper." And I think people have a misconception of it. Maybe, 20, 30 years ago, it was like you learn how to do something in college, and that's the training and the preparation you get for the real world. But now, like you said, like by the time you graduate, everything's obsolete. Like if you're
Yeah,
studying computer science right now and you have 4 years to go, like there's so many things that are going to change. So
yeah,
I think for like college and just even higher education certifications, the learnings that you take from that are not just the tangible skills. It's more of the creative thinking and the
yeah.
ability to kind of work
Critical
on hard
thinking.
things and,
Yeah,
the
the
persistent,
research. Yeah, be
right?
able to actually
Research,
go in and figure it out that I could get an online certificate, that
right?
I could take online courses, that I could go to the library and get a book. I can go to the store, I
Exactly.
get on Amazon and go get a book, right? I can go read that book, I can go get a certification, I can actually do the research that one thing is, like, when you went to college, you learned how to write that paper.
Right.
You
You
learned how
did.
to do the research, you know how to do the thesis, you know how to argue something to your
Mhm.
professor, do the blue book. That's the skill set. You shouldn't just forget about it.
Right. Yep.
You gotta keep in it. You gotta stay in it. I think the mistake people make is they think, "Well, I did that. I'm done."
No,
Like,
you're never
you're not
done.
you're not done. You have to it's like as a musician, I still have to practice.
Yeah.
It's not like, "Oh, like, you just got it." No, I still practice. And
Yeah.
because you still have to keep it at a certain level to be able to do it. And it's like anything. It's like you have to practice that, like, what you're doing to stay
Yes.
up on it.
Oh, 100%. And it's like people are getting real shocked right now going back to offices because they've been at home for the last 4 years. And it's different, like, having to be around a lot of people again and just having to just kind of get back into it, like, they say that you will never forget how to ride a bike, but if you don't do it for 30 years, I'm sure that it's not fun the
Yeah,
first time
it's
you
not
ride
fun.
that
I don't
bike.
wanna go down Mount Snow on your bike if you
No,
haven't touched it.
you haven't touched it, like, you're not, you
Not ready to
probably
do
real
that.
slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a mountain biker, so I'm like, yeah, it's like I haven't done Mount Snow in a couple of years. It's like, so I would have to practice on
Yeah.
smaller hills before I try that again.
Yeah, you gotta
And
train.
that's just it's like, I'm not gonna like, I go with my buddies, it's like, "Yeah, let's go do the killer run." Like, no, I don't think I'm doing the killer run right now.
You're like, "Give me a
I
little
gotta
bit."
I gotta ease into it.
Mhm.
But I think, yeah, like, I think it's really important to learn how to work with the recruiters though,
Yes.
and have, like, certain expectations. So do you run into people have, like, maybe misconceptions of, like, how they should engage with the recruiters and maybe,
Yeah.
like, mistakes, like, common mistakes people make?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm so glad you're asking because a lot of people think that recruiters work for them or that recruiters, are these magical we're just humans. And a lot of the recruiters, especially the corporate because there's a difference with the recruiters that work for staffing agencies that they don't actually work for the company that they are referring you and
Mhm.
recruiters that actually work for that company. So either way, I think having recruiters in your network, if you don't already, it's so easy on LinkedIn to just connect with recruiters. And I think a common misconception is that I'm going to look for a job for you. That's not possible, especially if you work for a company. It's like there's only a certain amount of jobs that I'm required to fill or, that I'm working on at a time. So I think a common misconception is that like I'm going to remember and call you back, but they talk to it could be, hundreds of people. I think I hire about 300 people a year. So imagine how many conversations I'm
Yeah,
having.
yeah, a lot. So
It's a lot of
not top of
conversations.
mind. Somebody thinks they're top of your mind, and they don't
Right.
realize how many people you're talking to.
Exactly. And like and things happen, and there's so many things with roles and I think that people always think that they're bothering other people. Like they don't want to I hear that all the time like, "Oh, I don't want to bother you. I know you're really busy." You're not bothering me. You're reminding me that you exist. And
Mhm.
if you are if fit and I have a position for you, I would love to get you that job or connect you or put you in the stack, right? So I think that's a common misconception is that you're bothering recruiters by reaching out to them. You're not bothering them. Even if you interview or people are human, they're not, you might fall through the cracks or, people get sick or go on vacation or jobs get put on hold, but that doesn't mean that you can't follow up with them in 6 months
Oh,
or,
yeah. Yeah, you
keep
gotta
that
keep that follow
Rolodex, keep
Yeah.
that keep that person in your pocket. Um, And I think that that's something that, people just they don't realize that they can do. You can totally do that. I think
They
that
think the etiquette probably is, "Oh, I'm
yes,
bugging them,
I'm bugging them. Why are
and
they
then
gonna
that's gonna
talk to
keep me
me?
from getting the job if I bug them, then they're gonna put me on a list and they're not gonna get it."
Yeah, no, they are gonna be more than happy to hear from you, especially if you give them everything they need. The resume, tell me what job you're looking for, tell me how much money you want to make. Just make it super easy so that when something does, come across my desk or I hear of something, I can remember, oh yeah, this is something you might be interested in. Um, so I think that's a big thing, but it's always good to have recruiters in your network. It's always good to have anybody in your network, hiring managers, recruiters, founders of the
Mhm.
companies that you want to work for, people that are heading up those departments. It's good to have these people, and they're just regular people. You can reach out to them, say hi, and a lot of people, especially the ones that are higher up, they're doing a lot of, like you said, symposiums or speaking engagements or speaking events. They're going to be more than happy that you reached out to them and let them know that you watched their talk or you read their article,
Mhm.
and that's like an easy way to just start that conversation.
Do you think people are making certain mistakes, like equating LinkedIn to like Instagram and doing posts on LinkedIn are more like Facebook, social media, or Instagram post, and maybe that's not exactly what you should do?
You know, that's a good question. I would really it's kind of funny because I see both sides of it. Like I have a lot of recruiters on my LinkedIn, my peers, and then I have a lot of candidates that I've hired throughout the years or people that have connected with me. So I would say I've seen this trend of people just being just so and it's wonderful. They're vulnerable, they're open, but like sharing their life story on LinkedIn.
And I don't know if
And
that's the best move.
I don't and it's funny, and I mean, I think that you really have to be careful what you're putting out there and how it looks because you you have so much time to make a first impression. And, I'm not saying that like you can't be yourself, but it's more of I've had people literally complain about recruiters. Recruiters suck. They never get back to me. This job market sucks. And just like going on and on and on. And it's like everyone that you know professionally is seeing that and they're
Yeah,
seeing
they
how
gotta
you're
be careful.
handling it.
Yeah,
And, for every complaint post there is and how they suck and the job market suck and recruiters suck and they're getting ghosted and all these things, there's other people that are posting like the volunteering that they're doing and what they're
mhm.
doing with their time. There's just
Or they're writing
so
the articles showing their
right.
technical ability,
There's
like,
yeah,
but
they're doing stuff.
showing like, "Oh, I'm gonna make, like, an article about AI pros and cons." Like,
Right.
actually do some research and actually come up with like an article,
Yeah,
like a
some
white
thought
paper.
leadership piece. Exactly.
It
And
seems like that's the type of thing that you wanna post like that, like you're writing a white paper, or you're showing a new way to do something in SQL, or a new way to do something in Python, or I've seen techies that's what they do,
yes,
rather than doing like an Instagram post, like a
right.
cat video
Like and
type of thing.
people that's
You
not why they're there.
I don't know if you wanna do that. That's not
No.
the right thing to be doing on LinkedIn.
Oh gosh, and they're trying to push video so hard right now, and it just I don't know what their plans are. I think they just want to be that next social media
Yeah, I
platform.
think you could kinda get yourself, like, blackballed if you do the wrong
Right.
thing.
Exactly, exactly, and, I think that it's just it's people think about personal branding, and again, it's these big scary words, but it's like, that's just your reputation. How do you wanna be seen in the world? And I mean, it's fine. You throw a cat video in there once or twice, but like if all you're doing is throwing cat videos in there and complaining about the world, like people, and it might not even just be hiring managers. It's like I said, when you're interviewing, people are going to look you up and they'll see what you're posting. And I've actually had a couple instances where a company has not moved forward with someone because of their just commentary on
You're gonna be posting, yeah,
Instagram,
because they
right?
might
Or
be
even
like,
on
so what happens
Twitter.
if they work for us, then they're gonna make comments about us,
Right.
and so they might be too, not that you don't have freedom, but you gotta be like, once you work in the company, there's certain, like, expectation of,
Yeah,
like, how you carry yourself. There's, like,
right.
etiquette,
You can't
and
be
it's like,
bullying people on the
yeah,
internet.
yeah,
Right.
you gotta be the people look at your Facebook.
Yes,
People
they
look at
do.
your Instagram, they look at what you're doing, And if you're doing something like outrageous and it's clearly like, oh, I can tie that to who you are, and it's like, well, they might not want to be associated with that because you're going to be in front of a client facing, and it's like, well,
Yes.
the client might see that and they might not like it, and so you have to like think about like you live in the real world,
Right, right. And,
not this like theoretical world
yeah.
where you can do whatever you want.
And it's funny because, like, people might think, like, "Oh, that's not fair," right? You can't shelter, and I totally understand that side of it, but it's true, we're humans. We're going to judge, right? We're going to have an opinion, especially people that are more, whether they're more uptight, they have different values, they have different thoughts of what's
Yeah, more
acceptable or
yeah,
not.
corporate structures.
Corporate structures and things like that. Like, I've actually, and that's my job as a recruiter, and this is probably good for people to know that I try my hardest to stop that bias from getting too crazy in the interview process. Because just like you had said, this year recently, they were like a spiritual, like tarot reader, and they were going to be the executive assistant. They were evaluating hiring this person to kind of be the executive assistant for the CEO. And when the VP of HR saw this person's Instagram, they're like, "Oh, I don't know. This is a lot." Like, it's not professional and all of this. And it's not that that was her opinion, and it's
Mhm.
not that she was wrong or right, but it's like, do you want anyone to have to do a second guess, to think twice about if you
Yeah,
are qualified and all these qualifications and all of the work that you've ever done? Like, do you want someone to have those 2 seconds to judge you in maybe not so great of a way? It's
yeah,
preventable.
yeah. That's like the kind of issue when you're an artist. Like if you're an
Yeah.
artist, like and you're putting stuff out there, you got to, like I'm a podcaster, I'm an artist, I have stuff out there, but you know, some of it is kind of leveled because I have my name is Phantom Electric Ghost, and then I have my business name. I made choices to like have
Yeah.
like a stage name and
Mhm.
then have my thing, and it's kept some separation where it's like Keith is known as this person and Phantom is
Right.
this person, and usually there's no cross pollination,
Right.
and usually there's like I haven't had an issue, but like if trying to like be that person, like the tarot card reader, and then you're trying to
Right.
get this executive job, like maybe having a stage name or a pseudonym better would be better.
Right. Right. Or having the confidence to just, and we did hire that girl and she did great. But but honestly, I don't know if I didn't say anything if that's where it would have gone. Or I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
wait,
because it can
that has
happen.
nothing to
Yeah,
do. But I think, I have the attitude of, if they don't like what you're doing. So, like you said, you have a business. Me too, right? If they don't like, there's millions of other places to work. But
yeah,
you have to be okay with that being the situation if that's how you're going to handle it. So it's kind of like, you got to figure out what you want to do and how you want to show up in the world, how you want to be perceived.
yeah. If it's important to you to have your
Right.
artistic self and know that some opportunities are going to get not be able to go there because of that, then you live with it because like you're a person that like I have to have my artistic. I write
Yeah.
books. Somebody could say they don't like my book, right? And then they don't want to have that
Right.
author working for 'em. So, okay, well, that's up to them. But like,
Yeah.
are you gonna stop writing because that one company doesn't like your book? Probably not.
I
You'll
hope
find a
not.
company that will allow you to write the
Mhm.
book. So you just kind of decide like who you're gonna be and what's
Mhm.
important to you in your life, and you just like you can't hold like grudges. You just like, hey, these people that don't fit. Like sometimes like law of
Right.
attraction. Like I belong here, I don't belong here.
Right, right, but you have to figure out where you belong.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're just gonna find yourself in these situations where you might not match up, and then you start getting in your mind about it, in your head about, "Oh, it's me," but it's not you. It's like,
yeah,
it could be the wrong time, like you said, or the wrong place, or the wrong company, and I think that's a big thing that I would love for people to just, like, get out of your heads. It's,
yeah. Because
like.
sometimes it's like the wrong timing. Like you could be in one
Mhm.
organization at one time, you didn't fit, and then next time you do fit, or it's the
Right.
opposite. It's like things can shift, the markets shift,
Yeah.
laws change, markets change. Things happen. So
Mhm.
you could be like, hey, I'm doing this job, and then suddenly like people don't want that anymore. and then
Yeah.
they want something else. Your company isn't dynamic enough to switch, and then you're not there because
Right.
the industry shifts. You're not you're not doing Laserdisc anymore because it didn't work.
Right. Right. You're like,
Nobody
"Oh,
bought
that's
the Laserdisc, but you were in it like that. You put everything into that. It's like, well, that's not what people they use. They use a DVD, and now they don't even do that. They do streaming.
right."
So it's like so if you get too invested, you have to kind of be willing to kind of see where the world's going. Things don't stay permanent as much as they used to.
Mhm. Oh, they're
And so,
moving so fast.
yeah, so you can't always just rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
You do have to be an active student. You do have to like try to look at what have you done in your life that you could take advantage of in this moment
Yeah.
where things are shifting. It's like you probably do have something that you can have you could bring to the world, and you just got to like kind of dive into yourself and say like, hey, I do have value. I could add to this, and it's like, that's like a mindset. Like you got to
Mhm.
believe that you do have something to offer, right?
Yeah. And everybody has something to offer, and I really believe everybody has something to offer, and they need to look at it from because I know you can think about it in a way of like, well, that's hard and oh, it's going to be never ending and but it's beautiful to continue evolving and growing and to really like see what you're good at, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Like you will never know what fun work is if you've never tried anything to see if like you liked it or not. So I think
Yeah.
like it can also be really exciting and fulfilling to look back at this career and be like, well, I didn't just work at one company for 30 years. I actually did multiple things and got to try all the things I wanted. And I think that's the goal.
Well, yeah,
um,
it just you get to figure out where you fit in the world,
right.
and then suddenly, you might find your path, and it went from like something you didn't even imagine.
Mhm.
I run into people that ended up in places like that's not what they went to school for. That's not what they were trained for, but they were passionate about
Mhm.
it, and then suddenly their passion became the thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like their life experience helped them with that passion, and they learned how to market themselves and put themselves in the right place and then be in alignment. And it's just really trying to, it's a kind of looking glass self. You look at yourself, say, where do I need to improve? What do I
Mhm.
need to like, oh, this is working. Let's really push on this. And then things that maybe cut kind of on the fringe to put your foot a little bit in the deep end and don't worry, just kind of you need to kind of push it a little bit.
Right.
You
And
know,
focus on the progress rather than the outcome. Even if you don't know where you're going,
yeah.
just focus on what you like and trying different things and whatever comes. One thing that is funny that I think I can resonate is like sometimes our skills are things that we don't want. Like you want to be smart in math, but you're really good in English. I'm speaking for myself. I've always wanted to be good at math. I've always wanted to do something more technical, but I'm a really good communicator. I can talk to anybody. I have these things are skills. So if you think about what your skills are, what comes easy to you that doesn't come easy to other people,
That's
that's
the secret sauce. Yeah, that's
right.
the
It's like and then you'll love it because you're good at it. It's like look for jobs or careers that kind of align with whatever your strengths are, and it'll be easy. It won't be hard to
it won't be
work
an
every
uphill
day.
battle. Like, if you're
Right.
trying to fight that fight and then, like, you're making it 10 times harder than it has to be, it's
Yes.
like when you could actually not that you're cruising, but if you're in something that you're passionate about, it could be hard, but you love the
Right.
challenge, and so it's not gonna be something that you're uncomfortable with. It's something that you're kinda thriving in.
Yeah.
So if
You're gonna welcome the discomfort because you're gonna
yeah,
learn and you're gonna
yeah,
grow and you're gonna
you're
want that.
excited. Kinda it's like
Yeah.
the drama. Like when
Yes.
some people gotta have the drama or they're not excited.
Let me tell you, I have to have the fire for me. Otherwise, I'm not like motivated.
No, they just phoning it in. If there's no drama, then I'm
Yeah.
phoning it in. I gotta have something going on.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But so you have a podcast, right?
I do. Yes, I have a podcast.
And we do have your link there, and that's your podcast. Was it Hire Me Please? Was that
Yep,
the name?
hire me, please. And I just wrapped up the first season. I cannot believe you have over 1,000 episodes, right? Like it's
Yeah.
mind blowing how scary, hard, and then how fun it is at the same time. But yeah, if you want to learn more about what I do and my methodology and my philosophy behind finding a job in this market and what fulfills you in your career, give it a listen.
So it's on Apple Podcasts. We got the
Yeah.
link there. That's fully clickable. We've been live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and any other platform that we're going to be on, which will be on Apple, and we will be on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Amazon, a bunch of other platforms. That link is clickable in the podcast description. Right now, it's not clickable, but as soon as we're off the air on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, it will be clickable. So yeah, we do encourage people to click through on that and check out the links that our guests have, and this will bring you right to your Hire Me Please podcast. And we've been talking in this space about recruiting and career coaching, and so I think in this climate today is something people probably want to take a listen to. And I think it's really cool that you came on the show today and gave us your expertise and information, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It was so great talking to you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.